We are live. Coach Chris Wright of Alabama State. How does that feel?
Hey, it has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw your story on Barstool Sports, a graphic about how you were coaching in the NAIA and you basically financed your team's recruiting budget working as a server, was it?
Yeah, yeah. So that was man, 9 years ago at Central Baptist College.
Oh my gosh. So for people who don't know your story, haven't seen your story, I think it's better if you tell it than I do. Could you kind of walk us through your journey in basketball coaching to now being the head coach of Alabama State?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to be a college basketball coach when I was about 15 years old. Got recruited by some small schools, but man, I always wanted to go to the University of Texas. Grew up a diehard Longhorn fan, and again, knew I wanted to coach, and so started coaching at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, a Division II school. And volunteering when I was 21 years old. Kind of bounced around a little bit. Met my mentor at Fresno Pacific University, guy named Jim Saya. Coach Saya was a top assistant at UCLA for, man, I want to say 7 years, 8 years. I was interim head coach at USC. Could not have found a better guy, for a young coach to learn from. And so, we really turned around Fresno Pacific, and I got the head job when I was 27 years old, and definitely thought I was ready. You always think you are, right, until you get into it. And as a head coach there, had two really good years, and two pretty average years, and then I think really kind of started my journey in college basketball. And so, man, I'm 34 years old, get the head coaching job at Central Baptist College, and get hired in May. And I'm told I'm not going to be able to get paid until school starts in August, and so have to pay our bills, and then also find out we have no recruiting budget. And so man, started working, you know, waiting tables at the Outback Steakhouse in order to, right, not only pay for our bills, but to, be able to fly recruits in as well. And, from that point on, I think my, just journey as a head coach really took off.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I was reading through your bio on the Alabama State website to get prepped and sort of learn about your journey here. Just honestly, an incredible job at Langston, where you took it over and it was a 1-27 team, and then you go 31-3, 35-2, 29-8. Just I mean, sort of dominating at that level. And now you're at Alabama State, which I mean, Alabama State made because I'm from Alabama, I'm up in Birmingham, so I remember they made the tournament like recently, 2024, 2025, right? And it's just a phenomenal, a good program.
It is. It's exciting. I think our university is in a phenomenal place. It's unbelievable leadership from our president, right, Dr. Ross. Since taking over, he has done just a phenomenal job to get Alabama State really just a lot of recognition that it deserves. And so to be able to jump on board now with our athletic director, Dr. Jason Cable's phenomenal. It was great having a little bit of just history within the state. We spent 4 years at Talladega College. I think we went 126 and 25 there. Went to the NAIA National Championship game in 2021 before moving to Langston. And so, my wife and I, we really enjoyed Alabama, and we're happy to be back.
Yeah, that is amazing. So, in your coaching journey, because this podcast, we talk to people from all different types of backgrounds on overcoming difficulties in life, cancer in the metaphorical sense, right? These bad things that might come up. And I personally, I love talking to coaches about this because I feel like a lot of coaches can sort of be philosophical in a way they implement team culture and all these different things into their team. Um, I love to learn a little bit about your philosophy and how you've seen developing your team when facing challenges throughout a season.
So we have a saying that we talk about all the time, right? Like I believe with my whole heart, right? It's just that the toughest team always wins. And
Mhm.
so, I think just on the floor, one of your main jobs, right, as a basketball coach is to be able to get your team to have a certain degree of toughness, of grit, right, of resiliency. Because if they don't ever experience those things and then they experience them on game night, you're not going to be very good. And so, we really expect the best out of our guys, on a daily basis. Our guys know they're going to get held accountable for, right, for being the best they can in whatever it is we're doing. If it's lifting weights, if it's in the film room, if it's individual workouts, if it's practice, obviously if it's a game. And so, for us, again, I think it's really developing habits that not only are going to help our guys be the best basketball players they can be, but also developing habits so they can go and have a great chance to be successful when basketball is done. And so I think, out of all the accomplishments our programs have had, just seeing, the lives that we've been able to impact and the success that our players have went on to have, academically and then in life, I think is really special.
I love that because you're building up the human being first, and like it's almost like process oriented, where if the human being is good and they're hardened on game day, they'll be able to take care of everything else outside of sports, if you will. You mentioned earlier um, how you don't just get tough by showing up to game day. It's about building that, obviously, I'm assuming in the preseason and building up each week. Can you touch up on sort of how you do that and the mentality and philosophies of that?
Yeah, I think there's just a standard, right, in everything that we do. Um, our guys know that no matter what's going on that day, that they're expected to bring a certain amount of energy. They're expected to have a great attitude. They're expected to be a great teammate. And you hear coaches say this all the time, but I really do think in right 2026, toughness really is a skill. I think
Mhm.
society, man, can be very soft now, and I guess I'm kind of old school in that, right? Just that, man, I want to coach our guys really hard. I want our staff, I want us to love them even harder. But you get tough by doing really hard things, right? And by doing them over and over and over again at a high level.
I'm a Notre Dame fan, and Marcus Freeman. I don't know if you watch any college football, but he has the saying "choose hard," which I always love, and I think that you're right. Into today's society, it is like objectively speaking, it's probably softer than it was years ago. But in this world of NIL and kids growing up and they may not have that same toughness, how do you instill this toughness for a teenager who's coming in this world where the environment that they're growing up in isn't that tough world that it used to be?
I think it starts right with how you recruit guys. When we're recruiting, right, a young man, his family, hey, we're blatantly honest, right? What's it going to look like to come play for our staff? What's it going to look like to be a student athlete at Alabama State? What's going to be expected of you, right, on a day in and day out basis? You know, I I would like to think I coach our players the exact same way I would coach my son, right? Like I think if as a coach, if you really care about guys, man, you're going to hold them accountable. You're going to again try to help them build good habits that are going to get them where they want to go in life. And
Yeah.
I think if you have really good players, and our approach has always been right about just the development holistically for our guys, then I think you have a chance to be a really, really good basketball team.
Yeah, that's a good point. Your environment is so pivotal. So I like how you're thinking about the guys that you bring in because they're going to be surrounded by each other. So if all of them have that tough mentality or able to get through difficult times, they'll probably come out better for it. I had a friend who was an NCAA track runner, and he always said, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Like, in a sense, it's about who you surround yourself with.
Man, yeah, no, that's a great quote, right? And I just feel like as a head coach, right, coaching young men, right, like if they cannot get toughness now, right, like in college athletics, like
Mhm.
when are they really going to be able to pick that skill up, right? And so I think so many times when you think about toughness, people think about it being physically tough, and I guess there is an aspect of that, but to me, toughness is a lot more about just mentally, right? Like how strong are you? How much does it take to break you? And again, I think these are all traits that, um, right, that translate to being successful in life.
For mental toughness, I'm glad that you touched up on that, because I feel like there are ways to develop mental toughness, but like it might be harder to me than developing that like physical toughness, because you can do a drill and make it small and make it more physical and implement rules, but like how does one, it might not just be in basketball, it might be in everyday life where you're having issues with staying strong mentally. Like, how do you as a coach see a player who might be struggling with that and try to step in and help build them up?
Well, again, I think the first part of being successful coach at any level, right, in any sport is just, man, it's having a good relationship with the guys that you coach, right? Like if our guys don't know that I absolutely love them and care about them more as a person than I do as a basketball player, right, chances are I'm going to be able to have very little impact, right, on them or their lives. And so, I think we have a great staff here. I know we have a great staff here. Not only really good basketball coaches, but really good men. And so the 15 guys in our locker room are, again, they're being held accountable every day. They're being coached really hard, but they're being loved really hard as well. And so, um, again, I think one of the biggest things that we can teach these guys, right, outside of toughness is really learning how to be unselfish, right? Like as humans, right? I think we're all innately selfish, right? We want what's going to benefit us. We want what's comfortable for us. And I think that, teaching guys how to be unselfish, how to be a part of a team, how to give great energy, regardless if you're playing 0 minutes or 25 minutes,
Mhm.
right? How to just really learn how to be a part of something bigger than yourselves. And I think that is, to me, that's the coolest thing about college athletics. And, I think if you can get guys to be unselfish now, right, one day they'll be better husbands, they'll be better dads. And I think that's ultimately, right, my job's to win games here, but it goes far deeper than just winning games, right? We want our guys to be able to look back and say that this experience, right, changed their lives.
Were there any times, might be a game or a season or maybe even a practice, where your team was, you don't have to share all of it, but where your team was going through something extremely hard, and y'all had to come together and overcome it, and maybe y'all learned something as a team and coaching staff?
Oh, hey, absolutely. I mean, I think every week in college basketball, there's probably a lot more of those situations than you'd rather not deal with as a head coach, right?
Mhm.
But I look back to our team at Langston last year. We were last regular season game of the year. I want to say we were 60-2 at home at Langston, and we go and lose a home game to Nelson University at home. Right, only the third time in our 4 years that we had lost a home game, and so our guys are pretty down. We come back a week later. We're playing at the conference tournament at Oklahoma City University. Have a big lead there, and man, lose the conference championship game to Oklahoma City on their home floor in a game that we felt like we controlled most of the game in. And so I think a lot of teams right there would have quit, kind of would have packed it in, would have felt sorry for themselves. And, our guys did a phenomenal job of using it for good. And, then we go on to rattle off, right, our next 5 games and lose a close game in the NAIA national championship. And so I think that right there is a perfect illustration, just kind of about what our program's about and what it's built on.
That no, that shows mental toughness right there. I think like Kobe Bryant's like probably one of my favorite basketball players of all time, and he has I can't recite his whole quote perfectly, but he talks about uh, his his mental toughness was always being able to stay present on what's right in front of you, and it doesn't matter, if you're down by a lot of points, that's the past. Like, yeah, you can learn from it, but all you have is right here. And if you're so caught up in the projection of, oh, we might lose this game or we need to win this game, and you're focused on the outcome, you lose sight of that. And he's talking about that's one way he tries to stay mentally tough, is just thinking about what's directly right in front of you. And I think that the example that you just showed really embodies that, in my opinion.
It does. I mean, I think is right. The longer I've coached, definitely the more process oriented I've tried to be, right? Because if you take care of things on a daily basis and your habits are good and right, you're doing the work that needs to be done. If you stack enough days, chances are you're really, really going to like the results at the end.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Now moving on, I just talked about how Kobe doesn't real or didn't really look too much into the future. But now you're at Alabama State. There's a little future there. You're planning, season's coming up. It'll be here before you know it. What are things looking like for you now, and how are you preparing and taking over this NCAA Division I program?
Hey, it's exciting. Love the vision again that our administration has. I think it's a place where that we can come in and we can compete, we can win, and we can win right away. Right, our goal is to be in the NCAA tournament. Right, come March, and we realized the programs I think had one winning season in the last 11. But we love the roster that we put together. Love the coaching staff that we've been able to hire, and so our expectations are really high from what we expect from this group.
So what do you see from, and I've read the bio on the website about how you train your team and you talk about toughness, but when that team gets out there on the floor and people haven't seen Alabama State yet, what do you want them to think about when they watch Alabama State basketball in year one?
Yeah, so I mean, I think they're going to see an extremely tough team, a disciplined team, a team that really plays for one another, a team that's unselfish and just is going to bring a great amount of energy to the floor, game in and game out. And so, I mean, I love the talent level that we've been able to get. I think we have five guys that, have averaged double figures a game in Division One. Two of those guys were 20-point per game scores at their past stops. And so to be able to add that type of talent right away is definitely a good start for us.
Yeah, yeah. Would you consider yourself an offensive guy or a defensive guy?
Our identity is definitely built on what we do on the defensive end, right?
Okay.
And so, I think our last five seasons, wherever we've been, we've given up under 60 points per game defensively. Um, we don't play super fast.
Mm.
Usually pretty spread out, scoring the basketball. But yeah, at the end of the day, we hang our hat on what we do on the defensive end of the floor.
By talking to you, I could have, and I did read on Alabama State, it said strong defense. I could guess, but by like defensive coaches are usually the tough, discipline, hold each other accountable. We've got a standard. I myself, I coach lacrosse, and it's very much like basketball. Naismith, who created basketball, was a lacrosse player, and I played defense, but I just am addicted to offense. I can't get it. And my teams, what I need to work on is getting that tough defense and the mentality of because there is something about tough defense and the mentality of it on teams, whatever sport it is.
Hey, Sean, now don't get me wrong. Now I like scoring the basketball too. It makes
Yeah.
life a lot easier. But hey, I've just seen it time and time again. I think that at the end of the day, you have to have really good players that can score in a variety of ways. But man, I think basketball is the best game in the world. Obviously, I'm biased, but man, your offense isn't going to be able to carry you, night in and night out. And I think that's why you've been able to see like our programs go to 3 national championships in 5 years. I really believe that come March, again, the toughest team always wins. And again, we want to score the basketball, but we know that what we do on the defensive end and what we do on the glass is really going to define the type of season that we have.
And this is sort of like, I mean, it doesn't veer on the topic of this podcast, but out of my curiosity, I have to ask, from an X's and O's standpoint, are you more centered around, okay, we get our players in and we're going to build around them and give them freedom to make decisions, whether it's offensively or defensively? Or do you have a system where you sort of recruit the guys to come in and fill that, and you run the offense? Or if you understand sort of what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, offensively, I think I'm always going to be a coach. We're going to change what we do based on our personnel, right? Especially with the landscape of college basketball and how often it changes. And, right, just kind of the turnover that's, I guess, that every program in the country faces right now. But defensively, right, I always tell guys, hey, there's no freedom, right? Like,
Yeah.
we need everyone on the floor really bought in to exactly what we're trying to do on that end of the floor. And so I think it's a little bit of a give and take at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I had to ask that question because I nerd out on that stuff. I stay up too late watching YouTube videos on the X's and O's and everything. So before I let you go, I've got one final question that I ask all the people who come onto the show, and it's in your life. It doesn't have to be basketball. It can be anything. And actually, segue. I would like to ask you one more question before that. Could you touch up more on your experience working at Outback Steakhouse and being before being a college basketball coach at your new starting point, and what that was like, and learning from it? I'd love to just hear about that.
I just think, and we talk about this with our players a lot, right? That to be successful, it takes what it takes. And obviously, coaching in college is, man, hey, there's a lot more important jobs out there, right? Like, we're not curing cancer. There's a lot of things, right? Like, we are coaching, right, athletics, but we're building young men in the process. But again, like, I believe that that's why I was put here on earth, was to coach college basketball. And so, looking back, I'm 34 years old, and, I have a very probably average, slightly above average head coach record, but I knew that, I was always going to figure it out. There wasn't going to be a way that I wasn't going to find, to be successful. And, looking back, working all those hours at the Outback Steakhouse is something that I wouldn't change, right? It's a big part of kind of why I am who I am today. And so, again, that's my message to our players all the time, right? It's just, we can't pick and choose, right? Like, when we're going to work or what we're going to really lock in and focus on, right? It takes what it takes if you really want to be successful at a high level.
I love that. I love that so much. And to me, that's just like a testament in a world where sometimes things get hard for people, and they end up thinking that there's not a chance to move forward. I think your story of sort of like financing your own team as a college coach is truly inspirational. Did I lose you there, Chris? Oh,
You got me still there?
oh
Hello?
yeah, I got you.
Oh, I got you.
Awesome. So one final question. I'm glad I asked that because I kind of meant to ask it coming in and then got lost in our great conversation, which is sometimes a good thing. That's how free flowing works sometimes. So
Right.
I myself am a cancer survivor, and that's why this is
Well,
called the Cancers Podcast. And originally, I was interviewing cancer survivors, other cancer survivors on here, but then I realized that life and listeners came from different backgrounds. So I started having people on the show who were from different backgrounds because I believe that. all people face different, unique challenges in life. So I always ask, in your life, how do you turn your cancers, your metaphorical cancers, into answers? How do you learn from these difficulties, and what maybe difficulties have you learned from that made you the man you are today?
And I think that's a great question. Um, you know, I really believe this, right? Who you are when adversity hits you is really what defines you, right? And I think you can take anyone with very little amount of character. And when things are going well, they're a good person. They're kind to people. They have great energy. They want to do good work. But for me, like, again, who are you when things are really hard? And, we talk about that a lot with our team, right? Basketball seasons are long, they're grueling, they're grinding. Um, but again, it's problems that we may run into as a team, right? It's a game, right? Right. We're not, at the end of the day, right? Our health's good. There's so many people that would die to be in the position that we're in as coaches and players. And so I think keeping that into perspective, is really, really important. Something that I think really, one of the hardest things that I've been through, my wife and I, we have a 4.5-year-old son now. When he was 2.5 years old, he was diagnosed with level 2 autism, right? He had lost all of his language, lost all of his sign language, and right, he's just over 2 years old. And um, right, I think, the adversity you face then becomes very real, right? Not knowing, um, right, how the person that you love more than anything in the world is going to turn out, or how he's going to be as an adult. And so, Um, luckily, my son received great treatment, and my wife did a phenomenal job with him. And I mean, he's really blossomed and is doing really well right now. But I think, really what kept me going is just like, hey, um, again, who are we when things get hard, right? Like, I think you can pout. I think you can get down. You can be sad, um, right? Which are all things that are like natural emotions, but it doesn't help at all when you're going through something really hard. And again, I feel very blessed that, right, that's the hardest thing in my life that I've went through. Um, because so many people go through a lot more difficult things. Um, and then for me, I think just also, right, having a faith where, right, just, man, I believe God's always taking care of me. He's always, right, had my back. He's blessed me far more than I deserve to be blessed. And so I think that's right. Just another piece that's really gotten me through any difficult time that I faced.
You're so right. God always has a plan. It might work in mysterious ways, but it always somehow works out. Coach, I just want to thank you so much again for coming on and representing Alabama State and all the past schools that you've worked for, and the players and your family so well, and helping listeners out there who are learning from you. And hey, like that's one cool thing about this. I always tell people is all it takes is one person to listen and learn from you, and then their perspective on life changes for the better. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Sean, thank you for having me. If we can ever do anything to help you or your podcast, man, please let us know. I appreciate you.
Yep. Well, everybody out there, have a good one. Thanks for listening to Coach Chris Wright, and stay out there, turn your cancers into answers. Appreciate it.